Welcome, everybody. Untap podcast episode number 12. We took a little bit of a break, but we are back. I am one of your co-hosts, Jonny Esports. I'm joined as always by JT. How you doing, my dude?
I'm doing great down here at the Jankyard, having a great time. How are you?
Pretty good. It was last week was kind of a crazy week for me in terms of showcasting esports and stuff, but this week we're back to talk some Magic, and it actually worked out that we took that week break because basically all these spoilers got to come out while we were kind of all gone, and we got to get them all by the time we were recording this. So I'm looking forward to that. So this week on the docket, we have, of course, our game we're gonna play. JT's gonna challenge me a little bit on who's that planeswalker. Point number 2, we're going to then talk about some Historic Pauper decks, which is a fun little format because JT's about to play in a tournament kind of right after recording this. And then I'll just talk about his deck, obviously. And then we'll end off. We'll talk some spoilers from Strixhaven to top off the show. So that will be the episode today. Let's see what we got. JT, let's start off here with our Who's That Planeswalker? Why don't you explain the rules for those that do not know?
Yeah, so similar if you've heard Johnny's 2 Truths, 1 Color Pie game, I will color shift a planeswalker, usually a planeswalker with at least 2 color symbols, and I'll shift one of those color symbols. Mm-hmm. Then we'll go through the loyalty abilities from the top going down. Every time I give a loyalty ability as a clue, I would give another one, it costs Johnny a point. So if I give the mana cost and the first loyalty ability and he gets it right there, he gets the full 5 points. Woo. If we have to use up one go down to the next loyalty ability, it's down to 3. Go to the last loyalty ability, it's down to 2. And if still doesn't have it, then if I give the set and gets it right, then he'll get 1 point.
Rock and roll.
All right.
All right. So, and of course, everyone listening at home, you play along. You let me know what your score is in the comments below. Let me know if you beat me out or, if you have any ideas for games of your own as well. So, JT, shoot at me.
All right. Here we go. Our planeswalker is 2, 1 red, 1 white for legendary planeswalker. Okay. Now, the first loyalty ability, +1, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain haste until end of turn.
Okay, so it's a 2 mana planeswalker?
Sorry, 2 generic.
Okay.
A red and a white, and it has a loyalty of 4. I forgot to mention that.
Okay, all right. Okay, cool. All right, so one more time. +2 gives you creatures you control
+1.
+1.
+1, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain haste until end of turn.
Okay, so this suggests to me haste suggests red, so that might be the color that you might have shifted the white. +1/+1. Heck, that's in like every color these days. But might be green, might be whatever. Haste. I'm trying to think which planeswalkers give you haste right now. I think there's a Chandra, but I don't recall a Chandra doing this specifically. I'm gonna need the next loyalty ability.
Absolutely. Next one, -2, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn.
Okay, so yeah, we're still on red. We're pretty confident red's real.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, so we actually already went through one planeswalker that did similar things to this in Angrath, but it's not Angrath.
That's true. We did. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, that was a few episodes back. I don't remember the exact one, but
please check the archives.
Please check the archives, mystical or otherwise. Oh man, I still don't really know.
All right, last loyalty ability, -6. Create 5 4/4 red dragon creature tokens with flying.
Oh, okay. So some sort of an older Sarkhan that I can't remember specifically. Maybe.
Okay, I'm gonna have to give it to you because you didn't get the name exactly right, but the older Sarkhan that I don't remember is close enough for me. It's Sarkhan Vol. I believe it's the original Sarkhan from Shards of Alara.
Okay, all right. Yeah, just the moment it was dragons, it was just like, hey, this is Sarkhan, but I don't remember all the Sarkhan one, and the original Sarkhan, that's cool.
So like, oh, is that a bit of a giveaway? We'll be fine.
Yeah. I basically knew it wasn't the Master List because that's the newest one, and I'm like, okay, that one has a static ability on it, and I remember that one. And then I was like, I don't know if this is Dragon Speaker or what's another one? The Mad. I don't know. There's a few of them, so I had no idea. But
you nailed it right off the hop when you were like, I think should be red and green. Like, yep, you're absolutely right. It's two, a red and a green.
Yeah.
I realized as we went forward, like, oh, this is pretty obviously a red card.
Well, I think it's fair to give me one gimme clue. Where it's like, okay, I can figure out one color for sure. I think that's fair because this game's hard. Unless you just have an encyclopedic memory of all the planeswalkers, which some people do, right?
Which some people do, but let's be honest, Johnny, neither you nor I can say that.
No, memorizing things was not my forte at school. Math was, because you didn't have to memorize anything. You just do math.
I could memorize some things for school, but at the same time, I know a lot of cards, not too bad. Mm-hmm. If I've played with them in the last 6 years, but anything before that, I'm the guy in Commander going, what is that? Dude,
oh yeah,
and
it's like a
Soul Ring. I don't know that card.
It'll be like a staple that literally everyone knows, and you're like, I don't know. It's like one time, I played against Nikachu, famous like Merfolk player, and he was it was Legacy, and he was playing Legacy Merfolk, and he had them all in Japanese. And I was like,
Japanese.
What does that one do? What is that one? Like it's Lord of Atlantis or whatever, right? But I'm just like, you just like should know these things. I'm like, I don't know, it's Japanese. even though like they're like staple merfolks that like theoretically everyone knows. It was the first time I ever played against Pikachu actually, and it was just like, I don't know what's going on here. So for context for everyone else, me and JT. Like, I've technically been playing for like 20 years, but like I was really, really young when I first started playing, and then never really got really into Magic until about 4 or 5 years ago. You were saying 6, like around that time, me and JT really got into Magic. So it's like anything kind of before that is still like a little bit unknown to us or whatever. So
I really got into things with Battle for Zendikar. And I'm one of these older guys. Like, I've played against young guys who are like, oh yeah, you're one of those old guys that used to play way back in the day, and now you've come back to it. And I'm like, no, actually, I didn't play way back in the day. I didn't start until Battle for Zendikar. I'm just old.
Yeah. Oh man, that's how I feel about esports, man. Everyone's so young and everything. But anyway. Moving on from that, again, if you want to let me know how you did in the comments below in the game, or again, if you have game suggestions, we will happily take them. We like starting the podcast off with the game. It's a little bit of interaction. You guys can like play along with it as well. It kind of gets us warmed up because like, especially like a day like today, technically it's only like 10 a.m. It's not even that early, but I'm like, I haven't finished my coffee, so I need something like that to wake up.
I haven't even made my tea yet, so fair enough.
All right, let's get into our brewer talk for the day. We got some Historic Pauper decks we're going to talk about, and if you don't know, basically Historic Pauper is commons only in Historic format. I don't even know what the ban list off the top of my head is. So
I've been working with a guy who I think he's one of the main people behind a Historic Pauper Discord. A guy named I think it's Platypus Jedi. God, I love people's names on Discord. Anyways, and he put forward a proposed ban list that I now use for Historic Pauper events, and it's 2 cards. It's Persistent Petitioners, because they're just ridiculous, and Ancestral Mask. And that's it.
Ancestral Mask. What's that do again?
Ancestral Mask is an enchantment. I think it gives. Let me pull it up here just to make sure. But I think it gives you +2/+2 for every enchantment attached So it makes, enchanted creature gets +2/+2 for each other enchantment on the battlefield. So it just makes Boggles dumb.
Oh yeah, and with like not super efficient removal in the Pauper format, that's with the exception of like shock and stuff, but like that's not, this automatically puts something out of shock range. And again, if they're hexproof, not super good. So, and there's not very good board wipes in the format. Like you could do 1 damage to everything, right? So that almost hits very little things, especially once you get like a hexproof thing with it. So that makes sense that that's banned out too.
Yeah, I know. The Platypus said the difference was it turned it from a 3-deck format to a 15-deck format.
Very cool. Very cool. That checks out.
So we, part of this reason I want to talk about this is we just are wrapping up the most recent week for the Jankyard League, and the format for the week was Historic Pauper. I haven't played much Historic Pauper until the last few weeks. I'm really digging it.
Yeah, it's cool.
So that's why I wanted to talk about this. Now, the one thing I kind of thought about is I love making janky decks, and it's in the name, the Jankyard. And usually you find those janky cards at rare or mythic. So that's one of the drawbacks. That being said, you can build some really cool stuff in Historic Pauper. And so, yeah, I'm becoming a big fan of this format. So I'll talk about a couple of decks I've built. Talk really quickly about the one that I played in the league. I decided to go for broke and went a mono red Pauper that's just one drops,
awesome,
and haste. So it has 18 mountains, and then a lot of 4-ofs. One card that is more than 1 mana, that's Burn Bright, to try to just give all your creatures +2/+0 until end of turn to just try to finish things off.
Nice.
And then everything else: 4 Akum Hellhound, 4 Fanatical Firebrand, 3 Gitu Lava Runner, 4 Goblin Arsonist, 4 Grim Initiate, 4 Scorch Spitter, and then 4 Ginger Brute, and then 4 Instants and Sorceries, 4 Warlord's Fury for draw, 3 Sambit Sprint, and 4 Infuriates. It's dumb. And it's either going to work really well by turn 4, or by turn 5 I'm out of gas and you're beating my brains in.
Yeah,
it's either or. So awesome. It was an interesting deck. The other one I really actually wanted to dive into, though, was a mono black deck I built.
Okay,
and this is all about gain and drain. So got some life gain, Banehound, Ghastly Gloom Hunter, both are life links, but the big thing is and then you've got stuff like Agonizing Siphon to deal 3 damage and gain 3 life. But then you've got enchantments, Trespasser's Curse, so every time a creature enters play under enchanted player's control, they lose 1 life, you gain 1 life.
Okay.
Dogged Pursuit, on beginning of your end step, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. Ill-Gotten Inheritance, on the beginning of your upkeep, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, you gain 1 life. And then you've got 4 Marauding Blight Priests, so it's whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. And 3 Epicure of Blood, same deal. And you're just trying to just drain them as quickly as possible. It's ridiculous. And I'll make sure to share the link with Johnny to put on this video, but I enjoy the heck out of it. It doesn't always work, but it is a fun deck, and I want to look at making maybe an Orzhov version, because there's really good Orzhov life game.
Yeah, there is.
But the mono black version is a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned Ill-Gotten Inheritance, because I just played that in the Jankyard League, and it was a Turbo Fog deck where that was the win condition. It was just Ill-Gotten Inheritance, and I'm like, oh my gosh, which was hilarious. Just to like really focus in on that with that mono black deck. That sounds awesome too, because that's the kind of deck that reminds me of like when I first started making up my decks. Started brewing because it actually goes back to Yu-Gi-Oh, where basically I would play what essentially is Death and Taxes, right? Just you play enchantments like that just like slowly kill your opponent while your opponent has to deal with stuff that that taxes them, and so they're not able to kind of catch up, and then they just like slowly get drained away and die. And so like a deck like that just like tickles me a little bit, because that's definitely like the kind of stuff that I used to really like brewing.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. All right, so for decks I got today, so the first one I'm going to talk about, and maybe I'll talk about this is a deck that I basically found on the internet. So the first one I'll talk about won't be a brew of mine. The second one I will talk about a brew of mine because mine as well. But basically this first one is like, if you're like looking to get into the format and you want like maybe a more competitive deck, this is probably one of the most competitive decks in the format too. And it's basically, is it control? But I really liked the win conditions in this deck. So basically I'll just go over that. So you got control stuff, obviously, your frostbites, your negates in here, right? So you have like Essence Scatter. You have generic control stuff. So I won't go over all of that stuff. But the win conditions in it are Goblin Wizardry, which is an instant for 3 generic 1 red. It creates 2/1/1 red Goblin Wizard creature tokens with prowess, as well as Pyroceratops, which is 3 colors, 1 red for a 2/3 creature elemental dinosaur. It has trample, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Pyroceratops. So these this deck actually kind of just explodes and then gets at you, because of course, like if they try to play something, you just like counter, and then you get the prowess triggers or a counter onto a +1/+1 counter onto Pyroceratops and just keep attacking. So that one's fun, because it's just kind of, I don't know, it's tempo-y, it's control-y, it's all that stuff I kind of like about Is It, and then top it off with like basically prowess creatures to win the game. The second deck I want to talk about, which is one closer to, well, it is a brew of mine. This one is basically Selesnya Auras is a really popular deck in the format, but I kind of like flipped it a little bit and went with a blue-white deck for this. And the reason for that is my creatures are Battlefield Raptor and Healer's Hawk, which is pretty typical of like the Selesnya Auras deck in this format. But you also get Mistcloak Herald and Slitherblade in here. So I got some straight up unblockable creatures in this deck. Yeah, it's great. And so the way I pump these guys up is I'm using artifacts instead of auras. So I got Bone Splitter, I got Utility Knife, which both are very, very cheap ways to just like give a little more damage to someone. Cartouche of Knowledge is in this deck, as well as Relic Axes, which have some slight extra value considering Mistcloak Herald is a warrior, but Relic Axe is a 2 mana artifact equipment. When Relic Axe enters the battlefield, you attach to creature you control. Quick creature gets +1/+1, but if it's a warrior, it gets +2/+1. So like a little more synergy with specifically Mistcloak Herald, but generally speaking, giving something +1/+1 is all you're kind of doing. And what's kind of nice about doing it this way, instead of like basically like a Boggles type deck, is just like if you kill a guy, it's mostly artifacts. You just move it to the next guy, and you keep going. And Mistcloak Herald and Slitherblade are hilarious because they're straight up unblockable. And going blue puts you into territory where you can have dive down in this deck too, as well as some counters. Keep safe, counter target spell that targets a permanent you control, and then you draw a card. That's a fun one. And then your sideboard could be basically counters tailored to your opponent. So this is a fun way to kind of play similar to the Auras deck, but it's a little bit of my take on that. So those are my decks for this week.
They both sound sweet.
Yeah. I love the Is It deck because it's like, but this blue-white deck too, if you want to be a little more aggressive, it is kind of that tempo-y aggressive deck, which is also a favorite style of mine to play too as well. Some fun decks. If you are interested in checking out the Historic Pauper format, there's also a Discord for that community.
Yes,
I'll actually link that in the description below. Tons of people are always looking for games. They're always brewing stuff, which is pretty fun. It's a cool Discord. You should join that, as well as joining the Jankyard Discord
yes,
one as well. So
we have a really good community.
Yeah, I'll also link that too as well. All right, so that's our brewer talk for this week. If you got any cool decks in the Historic Pauper format, let us know. We'd love to see them, and maybe we'll steal them.
He's not kidding.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. I'll play anything, man. At least I don't claim it's mine. I will give you that. Like, I will admit that blue-red control, not my deck I created, so I admitted it right off the hop. But if I steal your deck, I'll tell people I stole your deck.
No, and as well you should, right? I mean, yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's move on to our last topic of the day, which will be Strixhaven. Do we want to start with what we want to talk about with the Mystical Archive stuff, or do you want to go into the
Sure, we
set
can
proper?
we can start with the Mystical Archive.
Yeah, let's go. Let's
Sure.
get into that. So, in case you don't know, Mystical Archive is basically cool art reprints. They're not going to be legal in standard. A bunch of them will be legal in historic though, which is pretty exciting. Some of like the really busted cards are pre-banned in that format. It's really cool. I'm a big fan of this. What's since this is kind of a brewer podcast, what's some stuff you're excited to potentially brew around in historic?
Well, yeah, it was just for those that aren't familiar with it. If you remember back from a few years ago, the Inventions in Kaladesh and the Invocations in Amonkhet, it's very similar, except they're putting one in every pack, which I think is just wild.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's a lot of it's just about the beauty, because these are older cards. I think, when we if we can get to paper draft,
Yeah.
I would love to. Oh, look, Doomblade. Thank you.
Yeah,
Or Demonic
Daddy.
Tutor. Yeah. But I mean, other than that, I think to me, it's going to be the fun of having some of these just for the beauty, because for the most part, they are gorgeous. We will not discuss Faithless Looting.
No, that's tired already.
It is. It's very tired. I mean, it's artwork. It is what it is. I noticed, but I noticed people got really bent out of shape about it.
If you one thing I want to touch on it, do check out Carly Mazer's art. The rest of it is honestly, I think, really cool. This phase,
the Harmonize is incredible.
Yeah, the Harmonize is great.
But anyways, yeah, I mean, yeah, looking through them, I've got to admit, Wizards has done a really interesting job in picking out a very broad cross section of cards. I mean, you've got some older stuff, and some stuff that's can be quite valuable, and then you've got stuff like yeah, exactly. And then you have something new like Snakeskin Veil, which is already quite popular, or Growth Spiral, and then like a good old classic like, oh my god, it's Lightning Helix. You got Lightning Helix and Cultivate. So and Shock. So I'm really impressed with what they've chosen here. It is a nice cross section. Duress, and then Crux of Fate or Dark Ritual. So yeah, I think I feel like Wizards done a really good job. I think for me, the card that jumps out is because it's one of my old favorites. It's Approach of the Second Sun.
Oh yeah,
and the art on it is great. It does invoke, quite frankly, kind of a Central American indigenous feel. So I think it's really cool. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm actually looking forward to cracking some packs and pulling some cool looking cards.
And I think we haven't touched on yet too is the Japanese arts. I think are fantastic.
Yeah, I think those of us not getting Japanese packs are getting hosed.
Yeah,
I think, let's be honest.
Those are so good. Speaking of Approach of the Second Sun, the Japanese art on that one's nuts. The Japanese lightning bolt. That looks so cool. I want to try to get those. We can get those in collector's packs. I don't really buy collector's packs. Those aren't really my thing. But if you can get yourself a Japanese booster pack, so you could also get them that way. Yeah, that's awesome. I think the Japanese won this game for sure, because I think these arts are super great. Even the regular arts are good, but the Japanese arts are just like even another level for me in terms of how cool I think they look. So, and of course, personal preference, blah, 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 blah. But still, I think they look great.
Well, and as somebody who's actually really into mythology, I mean, for the Japanese ones, they have greatly drawn on Japanese mythology and art of old Japanese mythology, and they've just gone all in on it. Yeah. And yeah, it's phenomenal. So I hopefully would like to get my hands on some some Japanese packs for sure. Just like
Yeah,
if
I
you
need
guys remember, yeah, if you remember a few years ago, the War of the Spark and the Japanese planeswalkers, those things were just above and beyond anything else. And
Yeah,
I'm feeling we've got that here again.
yeah, I actually didn't like them that much.
Oh,
Not that
okay,
I
I
don't
did.
like anime style. Like I do watch animes here and there, but it's like I didn't like. I wasn't clamoring for them much more like I'm clamoring for these ones. Is basically all I'm saying. They were still cool.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. These ones I think, but these ones I think are just like this. This is the art style that I'm really into. So it's like this one, like this one I'm thinking about at least grabbing a few. Like I said, opt already. I want a lightning bolt. I at least want to grab at least one of each of those. Maybe I'll try to get a playset of them, especially since those are the easy ones to be like, this is opt. This is what it does. If someone sees a Japanese card, right? We already touched on that a little bit of talking about Merfolk there when I played against the Japanese deck there. But in this case, for opt and lightning bolt, I do 3 damage to something. Easy.
I mean, again, I just saw the approach. Oh, that is phenomenal. Yeah, it's phenomenal artwork, and I mean, I think I've touched on this before. I really like seeing Wizards branch out like this and do different stuff like this. I do not want to see them do this constantly. I don't want this to become the norm, because then it loses its power.
Yeah, you lose a little bit. But the one thing I'll say I like just kind of as a general is just like sneaking in reprints into standard costed sets. So like even if it's not like this crazy over the top super art like you're seeing now, sneaking in demonic tutor into the set essentially is great, because you don't want to see that in standard. That's crazy, but wait, prices of Magic needs to go down. I guess not need is a strong word, but like it's really nice if prices of some of these cards can go down. And I think this is a very creative way for them to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you get like an Inquisition of Kozilek or Demonic Tutor, Time Warp. It's nice to just have some of those in there. I agree wholeheartedly, and then also giving us something different to look at. So I think it's good that they do this every once in a while, and I'm glad they're not going so overboard and turning it into something permanent. But yeah, give us different art styles, and cool. I think they're seeing that the fans are embracing that.
Yeah. Like I like this approach of giving different art styles as opposed to like say you print 7 different Teferis that are all the same and have all the same art. At least if you're going to give us different cards, you're going to give us different art on them, and that's a cooler way to do things. Oh man, this negate is cool too. Anyway, but okay, so lastly, cool. One thing I do want to touch on before we move on to the set proper is just shout out a card that you're excited to brew with in Historic specifically, because again, some of these are going to be out in Historic. If I'm putting you a little bit on the spot, because I didn't prep you for that, so I'll go first while you kind of look through it. And mine's maybe the obvious one for everyone is getting Faithless Looting in Historic, because for me, obviously, my mono red Phoenix Bergie deck is gonna love this. This is just gonna straight up replace Tormenting Voices in the deck as just a more efficient way of doing that effect in this deck. Of course, you could flash it back, so that's awesome. I'm very, very excited for that card. But is there any card in here that, like, because it wasn't in Historic before, you're excited to potentially put it in the deck now?
I think the one that would jump out to me would be Lightning Helix. Yeah, I mean, as long as they say they're going to put that in, that's that makes Boros more interesting for me. So I think that's one I would throw it for sure.
Yeah, because like there's definitely Feather is gonna love that deck in that format, I would think. Just to clarify too for everyone, the cards that are being banned in Historic that are printed in Mystical Archive here are Channel, Counterspell, Dark Ritual, Demonic Tutor, Lightning Bolt, Natural Order, and Swords to Plowshare. Everything else is going to be pretty fair game.
Yeah, I had a feeling Bolt was going to be on that list.
Yeah, it's there's a part of me that thinks it might be okay because like Thoughtseize is in this format. If you're getting the premier 1-cost black spell in here, you get the premier 1-cost red spell. But I think they're scared of mono red taking over the format if it can hit face. I believe they want to draw the line at Frostbite maybe being the best that red's gonna get, which requires you to be in snowlands, and then it doesn't hit face. It does also hit planeswalkers, which is good. So I think that's the kind of limit that they're kind of setting for that. But or other things that become a bolt under certain conditions, but like Wizard's
have
Lightning.
conditions,
But yeah. So that, but they don't. I don't think they want to give you straight up lightning bolt.
And I think it's like the same reason why they won't give you swords to plowshares and they won't give you path to exile.
Yeah.
It's just a little too good maybe for Historic.
Mm-hmm. I almost think path might be okay, but swords I think is just like it's too efficient, and the drawback of the opponent gaining some life barely matters if you get rid of.
It's inconsequential.
Yeah. But potentially ramping the opponent might be enough for path to be fairish, considering the things you could ramp to.
Okay, that's fair. That's a fair point.
That's just me spitballing there. But anyway, we are kind of like up against what our sort of time limit is here, but let's talk quickly the rest of the previews. Or actually, do we want to just save that for next week?
Sure.
Yeah, because I think there's still some stuff coming out too. We can save a little bit of our talk.
Maybe do we want to just throw one card each?
Okay.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, because and then we can leave it. I would just say, so the card that has jumped out to me because of the simple phrase "lose the game" is Strixhaven Stadium.
Oh yeah.
So those of you that follow the channel, the Jankyard, I love alternate win conditions. So I saw this, it jumped out at me. I don't know if it's going to work. This seems kind of wild. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, remove a point counter from Strixhaven Stadium. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, put a point counter on it. Then if it has 10 or more point counters on it, remove them all and that player loses the game. I think this is going to be very hard to pull off. I am so excited to try.
Yeah, definitely. And for me too, I think in Commander that card's going to be really, really, really good. You get a rock out of it, and then essentially it could be something to win the game. I'm going to definitely try throwing that into my Joyra deck because that's all about degenerate alternate win conditions. So that gives me a second one. It gives me another one there. So that'll be fun. I think that'll actually be like a CEDH card, to be completely honest, because there's going to be ways to untap it and break it and keep.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, just win the game, just kind of on the spot. So the card, I would like to mention is Hoffrey Ghostforge. This thing is pretty cool. I wish it was Jeskai or blue white or something, just because then it would fit in my spirits deck in Commander. But either way, maybe I'll make a new red white spirits deck. So Hoffrey Ghostforge is 3 generic, 1 red, 1 white for a 4/5 legendary creature dwarf cleric. Spirits you control get +1/+1 and have trample and haste. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a spirit in addition to its other types, and it has, when this creature leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to your graveyard. So basically, that's a really long way of saying if something dies, it just comes back as a spirit. And you are able to kind of protect it in that way. But this is a really cool lord, +1/+1, trample and haste. I do really like playing spirits. I've been trying to find a way to play spirits in Historic, and like it's okay, but there's just like a lot of more aggressive, better decks kind of out there. Maybe I don't know if this sets it over the top. It is a 5 mana lord, which is really expensive. So it adds another lord when you have Supreme Phantom there that gives, of course, +1/+1 to other spirits you control, but also Empyrean Eagle, which is a pseudo spirit lord because it gives flying creatures +1/+1. And I'm willing to at least try this one out. At the very, very least, that effect where it protects other creatures, even if they're not spirits, is really cool. So maybe even just a Boros, this just being the top end of your Boros deck. We talk about Lightning Helix in there. This could just be the top end of your Boros deck, and it could still be good just for that effect alone. Never mind the spirit lordness of it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good white spirits, so you could do a Boros spirits deck, or I'm just spitballing here. You could throw this in with other spirits. You could maybe make, I don't know, Moist Naya. So that's Naya and blue, and just go whole hog on spirits and let this guy pump them all up. It's cool. I love a good lord, and this could be really interesting because spirits can be very powerful.
Yeah, indeed. So we'll talk more about Strixhaven in our next podcast. As again, we're a little over time. We like to try to keep this in under 30 minutes just because we want this to kind of be like fast and snappy. So we're a little over time, but it's what it is. We got a week off, so really we just needed to talk a whole lot. Anyway, we're getting a little caught up here. So that will end the podcast for the day. JT, would you like to plug all the things you do?
Just a reminder to check us out, twitch.tv/JankyardMTG, and also on MTG Melee, put in Jankyard to see what our latest tournaments are.
Yeah, definitely check that out. And of course, I will shout out my website in retouchmedia.com. It's essentially my portfolio for different things I do, whether that's design, videos like the one you're watching now, a little bit of photography, shoutcasting, all that kind of stuff. So if you have any of those kinds of needs, check it out at retouchmedia.com. I can help you out. And that will be it, folks. It was fun to come back. The week off was kind of nice because I was crazy busy last week. But it's good to talk to you again, my dude.
Likewise, it was good getting caught up, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, we'll see y'all next week with more Strixhaven. Bye, folks.